Hello. There is something I wanted to talk about, and I don't like to speak in universal truths. Like, whatever I share is just my truth, and everybody's going to have their own truth, and it may be different to mine. And so, this video is really going to be for anybody that can relate to being on a spiritual journey and maybe wondering, like, what is it all about? Is it about reaching the highest level of consciousness and being completely independent and not needing anybody and being fully connected to the spirit realm and divine universal love? Or is it going to be about not living a spiritual journey at all and just being a human being, doing the 9 to 5 job? And like, what's it all about? And I want to share what I feel like it's all about for me, in case some of you out there can relate. I used to believe that being on a spiritual journey was about reaching the highest level of consciousness. And so I was drawn to reading books like 1000 by Ramaji and really comparing myself and being really down on myself that like I had to reach the highest level of awareness and consciousness. That's the goal. So I dove into all these healing modalities and like therapeutic approaches, and the goal has always been to be healed and be more aware and more conscious in life. So what I want to share is that what I've come to realize more over the years, and this has a lot to do with being very passionate about psychology and counseling and therapy and the human mind and how trauma is formed as children and attachment theory. And these are all the things that I'm very passionate about and that I'm studying, because one day I hope to be a counselor for people and help them in their relationships with whether it's couples, families, or parents and their children. Because where the richness has actually come in life for me has not been in these spiritual awakening experiences, it has been living as that in my relationships. So yes, I'm here to say that the absolute highest reward for me in this journey is going to be through my relationships. So how do we get there? Well, first it's realizing that, and I don't know if I'm quoting this correctly, but Teal Swan says that we don't go looking for God unless humanity has failed us. So those words have really stuck with me as feeling so true, because the way that I have learned and the way that I've come to understand the human mind and how we grow in the world is that when we are born into the physical realm, into a human body through our parent, there's the veil, right? There's the forgetting that we are a spiritual being. However, there's no concept of being being a spiritual being nor a human being. We just are. We are born whole in that pureness, in that innocence of just being a soul incarnated into a body. And of course we're going to experience trauma through the birth. And like, traumas can't always be prevented, because, and it's not about not experiencing trauma, it's about the environment we experience it in, right? So if we experience the trauma of birth, but we have loving presence and compassion and empathy from people around us, particularly our primary caregiver, then we're going to process and heal that trauma, no problem. We're not going to split off in our consciousness and suppress that until later in life. But what happens is when we are born, our version of the world, our perception of what the world is going to be like comes from the attachment we form from our primary caregiver. If we form a secure attachment with that primary caregiver, then and we maintain that as best as possible through our parents' loving, secure attachment throughout life, then we won't really feel that there's anything missing from our humanity to then go looking for God or spirituality or healing, because our consciousness will mostly remain intact and whole. It won't split off and suppress in different areas of the body that we are unaware of, unless we get physical symptoms and emotions later, which is the trauma trying to get us to remember that it's there. So when we don't form a secure attachment, though, with our parents, this is when the consciousness splits off and trauma is formed, and the wholeness, it's not like our true wholeness, our soul can ever be broken, but our mind can be split into different personalities. And what happens then is we go looking for spirituality, we go looking for God to try to heal these aspects of ourselves. What we don't realize is that we are actually in denial that we need other people to help us heal. Because what we learn through these traumas, if we learn relational trauma, we are going to believe that relationships are bad and that our healing cannot come through relationships, because our experiences of relationships have been so bad that we think that we need the universe, we need God, and we need a spiritual connection to heal. And while that is true on some level, it's not the only way we can heal. Unfortunately, we need to repair. Sorry about the traffic. Unfortunately, we're going to need to repair our relationships, because that's where we're going to reverse that trauma in a way, and that we're going to actually, the most fulfillment in life isn't going to come through living alone in the world and being connected to spiritual experiences. It's going to come through being deeply connected and deeply intimate with another human being, because when we cross over at the end of our lives, we have all that time to experience the other side and the spiritual realm. So while we're here on earth, it's going to be about how deeply can we love another human being? How deeply connected can we feel to another human being? How much compassion and empathy can we show? How much kindness can we show to other human beings? And these are things that we were not taught growing up. So this for me is the actual purpose of life. It's not how higher in consciousness can we get, how removed from humanity and connected to the spirit world can we get. That's going to help us get there, yes, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is, can we form those deep connections, soul to soul, heart to heart, with other human beings that was missing from our childhood? So how do we do this? Well, we do healing work to reconnect to our true nature. Yes, because that's going to give us a good foundation of who we really are inside, because who we really are inside when we're born is connected and does thrive in relationships. But if that was severed, or if that was broken in some way, it's going to be hard to reconnect to those parts of ourselves. But most importantly, we need to work on repairing our attachment styles. And this is going to be through therapy or counseling or meditations, anything that reconnects with our deep emotions, and where we can understand the patterns that we picked up in childhood and how we're playing them out in the world, particularly with other people. So most of us grow up to be adults who fear other people and fear relationships and see them as negative and bad, and we need to avoid this at all costs. But no, we actually need relationships to thrive and to be as deeply connected as we can, because to me, relationships are just a mirror for being connected spiritually, because it's the only way that our wholeness and our connection to spirit can be obscured or suppressed in any way is through relational trauma, or like whether that's from relationships in society, our relationship to society or other people. So once we can start to repair our attachment styles and how we look at how we were related to as children and try to repair that and change that and make our life not about escaping relationships, but how can we have the most fulfilling, deep, intimate relationships, that is going to give us a sense of purpose and connection in the world. And then we don't need to go outside of that or outside of ourselves looking for all these wonderful spiritual experiences. And, you know, to be honest, I do see some people talking out there about that, that it's about the oneness with the universe. That's all that matters, being one with the universe. And a lot of these people have taken the focus away from the human experience of having a relationship. They share that relationships aren't important and that you don't need to rely on other people to be happy, but that is not true. While we need our independence in the world and we need to feel our own spirituality and our own divinity, we also need to depend on other people. So we need interdependence, we need both, and we need to bridge both. So yeah, if you're looking to actually be happy in the world, and like it's not going to come from avoiding relationships, escaping relationships, or believing that relationships are not going to help, you need to find a way to come back into them through healing your own relational trauma. So I hope you have found this video helpful, and I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any different perspectives on this, or if you'd like to share your own personal journey through your relationships on your healing journey. So take care. Bye.